last topic, the obvious one, and we'll get to all the fights, or a lot of the fights at UFC 133, is Randy Couture is here with us. You can come down and see him, 215 and South Buffalo, PTs, and they're going to show UFC 133 tomorrow. Frank Trigg is co-hosting. Tito and Evans will start the clock. First of all, on the Evans side, I haven't heard this from a lot of people, but I heard yesterday from one of the guys I trust that Rashad seemed like he was like in a weird mood before the fight, and he said he wasn't real effusive with his personality, like he didn't seem fired up, happy and loose, like he wasn't up. And the last time I remember that happening was the Machida fight, and he admitted afterwards he was kind of screwed up mentally. Could this training camp, could being gone from Jackson actually have him affected now with Imperial?
Well, I think anytime you have a change like that in the continuity of your training, it's gonna affect you. I don't know that it'll undermine his psyche as an athlete and prevent him from going out and doing what he's capable of doing, but it certainly has the potential to be an issue depending on how big a deal it was for him. It could be the best thing ever. Sometimes change is good, so you just don't know which side of the coin he's going to fall on.
Is there a chance you're mentally jacked? Like you've been in fights like that. I'm not saying Tito to Rashad is James Toney to you, but when you're in a fight where like you're supposed to win, can you screw yourself up with like too much pressure?
I think you can do all those sorts of things. Yeah. Psychologically, you can screw yourself pretty well. And I don't know that Rashad sees that. Yeah, I think the average fan that's followed the sport since they fought last time expects Rashad to win this fight, myself included. Yeah. But I don't know that he sees it that way. I think he thinks, especially off the Bader fight, that Tito's going to be a formidable opponent at this stage of things. He's got nothing to lose. He's been told if he takes this fight on short notice, they won't drop him, so he can let it hang out. Win or lose, he's okay. And coming off of a confidence builder like the Bader fight, he's going to be tough to deal with.
I picked Evans too, just because I think Evans, even though he's been off for that year, he's just a better guy all the way around. But Tito is still so dangerous, especially when there's no chance of him being cut, which is even more dangerous than a guy that's going to be cut, because now he's like, well, nothing's going to happen to me. It's a short notice fight. I'm going to go crazy. I'm going to go and let it hang out. And really, Evans is kind of one of those guys that sometimes change isn't good for him. Like, I don't think him moving down there and hanging out with Van Arsdale and those cats down there in Florida really was a good move for him. Of course, I wanted him up here at Couture, so I wanted another great high-caliber wrestler training with us, but it didn't work out that way. I don't think, though, that Van Arsdale and those guys could put together a good enough game plan to really get him moving. And it's the first fight, though, in a new camp. Give him a couple fights underneath the new camp, see what happens.
Always tough when the opponent changes at the last minute, too.
Yeah.
That's always another factor.
What do you think about Van Arsdale and then working out? He's calling himself a black Zillion. He's working out with a lot of the Brazilian fighters.
Yeah. The thing with Van Arsdale, I competed against him. I trained with him. He's been one of those guys. And in my opinion, that Mike's biggest attribute is also his worst problem. He's an amazing athlete, so he doesn't have to do anything. He doesn't have to really learn anything. Like I got to learn something. I'm not a great athlete. I have to figure it out, understand how it really works to make it happen. Where Van Arsdale just kind of shows up, sees it one time, and goes and pulls it off.
He's one of those ridiculously talented guys.
Really?
Didn't have to work for a lot of what he had, and Frank is absolutely right. He's silly good athlete.
And then athletically wise, Van Arsdale's 4 times athletically gifted than Randy is, and Randy beat the living crap out of him. Like, it wasn't even a question how that fight was going to happen after the first 10 seconds when they fought. So it's like you can see a guy that works and a guy that doesn't work. So I think a guy that doesn't work trying to teach a guy like Rashad who loves to work. I'm not sure how that real relationship's going to happen.
Do you like? We'll get to Tito in a second. Do you like Rashad's traditionally his game planning? And I know Jackson did it in the past. There's also fights I watch with Rashad where I'm like, what happened to the wrestling?
Yeah.
Like, why are we doing like stick and move boxing?
I think we've seen Rashad show up with a solid game plan and stick to it, and I think we've seen other times where he didn't stick to it, or you wondered what the hell his game plan was. Yeah. The Machida fight, that could not have been his game plan. I
think it was. I swear, I sat there on workout day, and he's sitting there with whoever his kickboxing guy was who went on tough. I'm slow tonight. And they were doing those fakes. That was the whole thing. We're going to fake and counterpunch. I'm like, against Machida?
That doesn't make any sense.
That was McSweeney. McSweeney was working with him.
We see him pull the trigger, incorporate at least the threat of wrestling into his game, and he's a tremendous athlete. He's got great scramble ability. He's very quick, elusive. He's got a ton of great attributes, but I think he has to take advantage of those things.
I think that's part of the problem right now with the sport as a whole. That a lot of guys are looking at the John Joneses and looking at the GSPs and looking at Anderson Silvas, and they're going, hey, look, these guys have a particular style. I want to mimic that style. And the problem is, though, is that their number one base, like GSP's number one base, is karate. So he's got that ability on his feet. John Jones' number one base is wrestling, and he's still real athletic, so he has that base to go back to if anything falls apart. And then these new guys don't have anything to fall back on. Where a guy like Rashad kind of falls into that wrestling mode where all of a sudden our hands are really good, he can't take us down. The only real guy that was really good at that from a wrestling standpoint is a high-caliber wrestler, and you really couldn't take him down, so you really learned how to box, was Liddell. Other than that, the rest of us all kind of failed at trying to be boxers. When we went back to our wrestling is when we had the most success.
I felt like the Sean Salmon knockout was probably the worst thing that could have happened to Rashad, because it put him in, all of a sudden he had this ability they didn't realize he had. And to kick a guy in the head or to punch a guy in the mouth and knock him out. And then now you're hunting for that every time you go out there.
Yeah, I agree.
On the Tito side, I don't want to downplay the victory, but I think some of it turned out to be kind of circumstances where Bader closed distance and Tito got a punch inside. You have the small gloves. Like, I don't know that I'm buying he's all the way back health-wise, or his athleticism is all the way back. Do you believe that? Because he talked a lot about his health.
I think those are still questions.
Yeah.
I think, and those questions, you're not going to answer those in one fight. Yeah, he did a great job in the Bader fight. He landed the shot. He ended up getting the submission. But I think that was a lot more reliant on what Bader did or didn't do in that fight than what Tito did. I think Tito was there. He capitalized on it. And good for him. I thought it was great. It was an amazing job. But I think we still need to see him in that battle. When he goes through a battle, with Rashad. And I'll be the one that says, yeah, this kid's back. He's not injured. He's 100%. He looks the best I've seen him.
Like, if you see a guy like Tito go through a battle and lose a close decision, you can kind of say Tito's back. But you see him go through a battle with Rashad and gets a little crap kicked out of him, where there might be a 10-8 round in there someplace, then you got to kind of go, I'm not real sure about Tito. But if it's a battle and he wins, of course, obviously, he's fully back. And Tito's one of those guys that, and I hate these guys, they drive me nuts. He's an excuse man. He's an excuse guy. My knee, my ankle, my back, my neck, I got to get this thing fixed. This is the problem. You lose, you win, you win. Don't say anything about it. It's just how the night went, because Tito's win over Bader was experience. He saw an opportunity to capitalize on it, and that's why he wins the fight. Not really that his back was fused and is fixed and he's stronger again. I haven't really seen all that mess yet. I'd like to see more of him. And even after this Rashad fight, depending on how it goes, we can still see more of Tito and still have that question. Is he fully back yet?
That's Randy Couture. Frank Trigg's here as well. We'll take a quick time out. We're at PT's, 215 in South Buffalo. UFC 133 is playing here tomorrow. You got the Bud Light specials. You got the Red Stag specials as well. We come back and we'll continue on UFC 133 and get into some more fight topics with two fighting legends.
Your home of the Hack and Snack Golf Classic at Angel Park.
Ooh, that was a good one.
This is ESPN Radio 1100 and 98.9 FM.
Rashad's a huge favorite. He's minus 400.
Wow.
Yeah, Tito's plus 300. So, I mean, that changes things, doesn't it? In terms of, would you lay minus 400?
That's just the way people are betting. Yeah. I mean, obviously, that's what most people don't realize is the odds are the odds. They don't really have anything to do with the fight.
No, they don't.
And how things match up
public
realistically.
Sentiment.
But, I think most people do see Rashad winning this fight. He's a little bit different fighter now than he was when they fought a few years back. I think he's more experienced. He's been down the road a little bit. And that was a big step up for him fighting Tito before. I don't think that's the case now. Now the shoe's on the other foot. And I think, you could make a case for Tito to win it. He's crazy like a fox. Coming right off the Bader win and jumping into this, no time to get out of shape, gets right back on the horse. Technically, he's still going to be a tough guy, but when I break it down, I think Rashad's got better wrestling. He's I think at this stage of his career, a better athlete, and I think he wins this fight.
All right. One of the, I think it's on Spike actually, is the Chad Mendes fight against Ronnie Yahya. And the reason I ask on this one is Mendes was in line to fight Aldo. Aldo gets hurt, and Mendes says, screw it, I need a fight. Kind of risky, but he's a huge favorite. He's like minus 600 against Ronnie Yahya, and from a betting standpoint, I don't think I'd bet it, but the whole look-ahead thing, overlook. What do you think?
I don't think he's I don't think he's overlooking the kid. I think he wants to compete. At some point, you've done all this work and you don't get paid unless you fight. I think he just wants to keep working. He wants to keep doing what he does, and put him on somewhere. I don't blame him for taking the fight.
Vitor is one of the most intriguing guys in the sport because obviously he's supremely talented from a physical standpoint. He can grapple a little bit, the boxing, the jiu-jitsu, but mentally throughout his career it always seems like he's kind of reinventing himself and he has down periods. But that was a bad knockout he suffered against Silva. What happens on the bounce back? He's training with you guys.
Again, one of those fluke things. You talk about the Anderson kick and the Machida kick. I mean, I've been doing this a long time. I haven't seen kicks like that and guys get dropped with them. It was a very interesting thing. And, I mean, he hit him right on the chin. He had a knot. When he came back to the dressing room, he had a huge knot right on his chin from that front kick. And it was a remarkable thing. Vitor took it in stride. You know, he relies heavily on his religious beliefs, and that was the way things were supposed to go, and he was okay with it. So I don't think it's going to be a huge issue for him. I think Akiyama is a good style matchup for him. Akiyama is a tough cat. He's trained with us a little bit in the past. Very, very good athlete, but he gets hit a ton.
Yeah.
Does not move his head. That's not a great fight for him.
He's another guy, game plan wise. Like you have a judo background. You know, you may want to take it to the ground, and he wants to slug it out. And I think the other thing is, I mean, you can tell me in the gym, I don't think he's a middleweight. I think he's a little short, and he's thick, but I think he can cut down to 170. He seems to gas a little bit late in fights.
Yeah, he has had that tendency to slow down a little bit. I think all the way around, it's not a great matchup for him. Speed-wise, athletic-wise, style-wise, I just don't think it's a great matchup for him.
Best tan on the card, though, no doubt. He is the darkest Asian dude I've ever seen in my Sexy Yama. He actually referred to himself. How cool is that? He actually referred to himself as Sexy Yama in the third person. That is awesome. I love that.
We see him in Japan all the time. No, I'm not jealous at all, because it's funny. Because in Japan they make fun of him because they say he's Cambodian. They never say he's Japanese in Japan. So that's what's funny, because he's so dark. Like, yeah, we pick some Cambodian. Like, I don't even get the joke. And I had to go look. And it's like Cambodians are usually darker, and so that's like, you're not even Japanese, you're Cambodian. So for him to make fun of it, like, I'm Sexy Yama because of his tan and because of how cute he looks, that for him he's kind of taking his stride now. He's kind of got over it.
It's cool. Last fight, another one of your guys, Mike Pyle.
Mikey Pyle.
Hey, Rory McDonald, I think this kid has a chance to be a real star. He's 22 years old, but, you know, he's had some trouble in some fights. I thought he was ahead of Condit and then kind of faded. He got caught early in the third round. And then with Pyle, he's 35 now. The guy's been fighting a long time, and it's kind of the same thing with Mike, right? The mental aspect, but it seems to me like he's turned the corner.
That's been his Achilles heel in the past, but I think he's been working with a sports psychologist here in town, and I think we've seen Mike start to come into his own finally. We've all trained with him. We know the skills this cat has in the training environment, and there's always been a disconnect when it came time to compete, and we didn't see that same fire, that same thing. And now I think his last couple of fights, he's really got it all clicking. He's coming together, and we're really seeing Mike Pyle come into his own and exhibit the talent that we've known he's had for quite a while. So that's great for Mike. It's not going to be so great for Rory, and I like Rory. I sat next to Rory at the Q&A after the weigh-ins in Toronto. What a great kid, and an amazing heart, and a tremendous fighter, and a huge future, I think, in fighting. And this is a really cool matchup because they have similar body styles, similar fighting styles. It's going to be a freaking fight of the night, I think. I think Mike's going to get it.
It's my pick for fight of the night. I really do think it's going to be a tough one, but I think Mike's going to find a way to slide in there with one of his patented hooks, or he's been working on a body blow now that's going to probably light him up. I mean, for sure. If it doesn't put him out, it's going to put him, make him take a half step back.
Well, McDonald's actually close to a 3-1 favorite. He's minus 270 in the fight, so Pyle's coming back at plus 210. So get over to a book.
Yeah,
and Vitor's actually he's about 3.5 to 1 favorite, about 340.
Okay.
So you feel pretty confident on that one.
Yeah. I like Belfort.
But going back to the Tito fight, I'm picking Rashad to win the fight. But if someone holds a gun to my head and says you got to lay money down, I'm taking the negative 300 because I want to win on the dog. So I'll go ahead and bet Tito. Like, I'm not gonna. Right. I'm not gonna go ahead and.
Stranger things have happened.
I mean, especially you saw him beat Bader.
You saw it, right?
You want to lay money down. You got to lay it down on Tito. But I'm definitely thinking Rashad's gonna kick the crap out of him. So I'm not gonna bet any money on that fight at all.